Hey guys, the Wood Craftsman here. I've got a shop update video for you. I've got a couple projects that are running in parallel, and I thought I'd kind of take you through to show you what's been going on here at the Wood Craftsman. So the first thing that we're doing here in the shop is actually updating the heating system. For the last 16 or 17 years, I've been using propane by the means of a forced air furnace. That's been working really well. The furnace has actually been really reliable. It hasn't caused any trouble. But at the same time, it is forced air. And the efficiency as far as heating a room with forced air, not always that great, especially if you got a little bit more heat loss like you do in a shop situation like this here. As far as the insulation value, I don't know what the R value is, but I can tell you that the walls are filled with 7.5 inch thick blown insulation, which was the thing back then. And then the ceiling has 24 inches of insulation in the attic area. Once again, it's something that was very popular back in the late 90s. The advantage to forced air heat is that you can heat a room up very quickly. However, the flip side of that, or the disadvantage is that the room will cool off fairly quickly. Talking with my dad, who's an HVAC contractor, he had actually said that if I wanted to look for a little bit better heat source, something that's a little bit more consistent, to actually think about hydronic heat. So hydronic heat is basically hot water, where you run hot water through either baseboard heat, a baseboard heater, or through the big old cast iron radiators. Now, we talked about this basically, you know, I said I wanted to do it, so he had actually ordered a boiler for me, which is actually a Will McLean CGI series. It's actually a CGI 25. It's a 50,000 BTU input with a 42,000 BTU output at 84% efficiency. And after I got that, I've actually had it for a couple of years. It's still in the crate yet. I kind of just put the project off really just because I knew I needed to get copper pipe. I needed to figure out if I wanted to get cast iron radiators, if I wanted to get baseboard. And here's what I found out about the cast iron radiators. Years ago, people were throwing them out because they were ugly. People didn't like them. No, I can't have this big radiator in my living room. I got to have baseboard, or I got to rip out my hydronic system and put in, forced air so I can have central air conditioning. And there was a lot of that went on. And what I found out was, combing Craigslist and eBay, is that the hydronic radiators are finding a way back, and not really more so for a reliable heat source, but more so as in like an antique conversation piece in like a formal dining room in a new home. I did find a company that was actually taking them where they were actually, I found two companies actually. One was actually taking them and sandblasting them and stripping them down from their original paint, and then repainting them and selling them and testing them and certifying them that they didn't leak. And the other company was doing the same thing, but what they were doing is they were actually inserting an immersion heater in the bottom and filling them up with like an oil of some sort, so that we had a radiant heat again via a small immersion heater. And the ones I found that were certified and pressure tested not to leak, and the ones that were probably already stripped down to bare metal, they were expensive. They were just as much as what I have spent into high output baseboard. So my whole thought of getting a couple of radiators got shot down pretty quickly just because of what I was finding they were costing. So I just decided that I wasn't going to do it. When I saw the price tag, you know, there's some couple of ones I looked at for the size that I wanted. They were like $500 or $600. So I actually bought the high output baseboard. Let me tell you briefly about the high output baseboard. High output baseboard is basically it puts out more BTUs per lineal foot. BTU is British thermal unit, in case you're wondering. The high output puts about 800 BTUs per lineal foot, versus a standard baseboard for residential puts out between 580 and 600 BTUs per lineal foot. With the baseboard that I have, I was not able to get enough baseboard on the wall space to be able to max out the boiler. That's one thing you want to do, is you want to make sure your boiler is working into its maximum efficiency. If you don't have enough baseboard to pull the heat out of the boiler doesn't run as efficient. And doing a walkthrough with my dad, who's the HVAC contractor as well, he had said that, you know, we need to somehow get another 25 feet of baseboard in the shop. And we looked at a couple spots doing the interior wall, looked at doing underneath the lumber rack, and I just really wasn't comfortable with either one of them. And I got to thinking about it, and I said, why don't I use a hydronic unit heater? Basically, it's looks like a box fan hanging in the ceiling, and there's a couple pipes, usually one on the top or the bottom or on the sides. And a lot of times the most common one you'll see is called a modine, or modine, depending on how you want to pronounce it. That's what I actually got here. I'll show you here very shortly, but it's actually just a fan with a radiator in front of it. So a fin radiator. So basically that's going to be dissipating the rest of the heat that the baseboard's not putting out. And the advantage to that is baseboard heat is very slow on, or hydronic heat in general, whether you do in-floor heat, baseboard heat, or radiant heat where you're using hot water. It's a little bit slower on recovery, but because I have the Modine heater, I'll get a little faster recovery as well. So it's kind of a nice feature to have. So let me go show you the Modine heater. I've actually got it hanging here. It's not plumbed, it's just hanging, but I'll just kind of show you what it looks like. There's the Modine unit heater, and I've got this hanging across from the garage door in the shop here, and there is no baseboard in this area, so this unit heater is going to work really well to keep this end of the shop nice and warm. The size of this unit is actually pretty small. That heater itself is actually 11 inches high, 13 inches wide, and about 6 inches deep. There's the back side. You know, not much to talk about. In fact, it's a little fan. It's a 9-inch fan actually. It's a shaded pole motor that has the capability of running on a solid state variable speed control, which I'll be adding to that. About 340 CFMs, 1550 RPMs, 0.78 amps on 115 volts. So it's not a very big fan. But as I mentioned, I'll actually be putting that on a variable speed control that's made by KB Electronics. Specifically designed for PSC and shaded pole motors. And the idea of this is actually hanging over the drying area for when I do finishing, that I don't actually want a large volume of air blowing over the area. I just much rather slow it down. So the optional accessory was to do a variable speed control for the motor. However, I didn't actually buy the Modine OEM just for the simple reason that it was marked up probably 4 times more than normal. So okay, so that's the update of the heating system, but the project that's running in parallel with this was kind of some organization changes or some organizing of the shop and some layout changes to basically prepare for the hydronic baseboard that's actually going on the wall behind me and the wall to your right. Actually, it's my left, your right, which is the 2 outside walls. So the organization changes as far as reorganizing the shop or relaying it out. There's a couple things that I started with and it just kind of turned into a pyramid effect from there. It actually got better and better. So let me show you those changes on the shop here. So I started by building this loft area here, which is really 7 feet long, about 2 feet deep, and it's about 6.5 feet off the floor, maybe closer to 7. I did this to basically put things up here that I don't use on a regular basis, but things that I still need for the shop. And then I'll actually have some totes and stuff up here, boxes of supplies, things like that. Things that I don't use on a regular basis that I need to store in here, but I don't need direct access to on a regular basis will actually be going up here. I was also able to hang some jigs up here I've used in the past. My drawer front attachment jig, I've actually got a video on this, hangs up here, and that's kind of where the organization started. So you might actually remember seeing this rack in previous videos. I built this several years ago, probably around 5, 6, 7 years ago, somewhere around there, and I did it as kind of an organizational rack to basically store cabinet hardware, fasteners, things like that, anything that was cabinet related or furniture related. For basically 2 shelves, and then the lower and upper and the top was more so, once again, miscellaneous storage for small items, parts, things like that. What I found out was it kind of became more of a store-all. Here's a prime example. I bought a roll of Flexilla hose. It's a 100-foot roll, came with the ends on, and I actually had bought this basically for just blowing parts off. I bought a couple nozzles to go with it. This is the one that I had trouble with fish eyes with in a previous video, but once again here I cut off what I needed and it just found its way on the rack. So that kind of stuff needs to stop. Prime example, here's another one. A friend of mine had given me this garage door seal, and unfortunately I just replaced the seal in the garage door. I knew I had it someplace, I couldn't find it yet. It was just laying down here in the rack, just buried. So miscellaneous things like that can actually be put in totes, and the totes can be marked to identify what's in there. So when I'm looking for it, I know where it's at. I have a whole furniture dolly full of miscellaneous cabinet hardware that basically occupied this bay here. So what I've done with that is I've got on a furniture dolly right now, but hopefully in a separate video I'm going to be building a couple cabinets to go underneath the miter saw station on the left side. I've got two 45.5-inch openings, but for now I'm just kind of going through the major changes here. So this rack is going away. So that rack actually used to stand right here. This is the wall where it was. And when I moved the rack, I realized that I didn't want this open space here. I wanted to be able to maximize it. And I wasn't really sure as far as what my first intentions were, but the more I thought about it, the more it made sense was to actually move all the shapers that we use for building cabinet doors together in a semi-contained group. This is actually the raised panel shaper, which also gets used for a couple other miscellaneous options or operations. One is face frame stock for cleaning up the edges. Sometimes I'll set a cutout in there for doing molding, miscellaneous things like that, but mostly this is for doing raised panels for doors and drawer fronts. This had originally been set back over here, and this is the coping and sticking shaper that actually was next to the bag house on the dust collector, which I'll show you very shortly. I originally had this one over where the raised panel shaper is, and the raised panel shaper over here originally, but the more I looked at it, it just made more sense to put the raised panel shaper on the end for a few different reasons, and the biggest one was just for running long stock with face frame stock and things like that. I can actually give this a little bit of a twist because it's on wheels, and it'll clear with everything. Now this one's also on wheels, so I can pull it out as needed for running longer stock as well. So these aren't permanent by any means, but it's pretty much their usable home location. And I actually have these hooked up as well. I've got, I'll bring the camera here very shortly and show you what I've done, but I got lucky with the electrical and dust collection. I just actually finished up the electrical and dust collection yesterday, so these are fully operational. I have to say I wish I would have done this a while ago because I can see a lot of benefits to this. So I got really lucky on the dust collection electrical for this, and I'll show you the dust collection here first. This is a 6-inch line that comes from the main trunk of the dust collector. It's a 6-inch that goes to an 8. So it starts in the dust collector as a 6, or as an 8, and then reduces down to a 6 to the main end here. Now originally where this adapter is, I had a floor sweep, a 6-inch floor sweep on the bottom, and I've never used it. And because the baseboard heat's going along this wall here, I needed to remove it, and actually by removing it, I freed up a blast gate. So this blast gate is hooked up to the raised panel shaper with a 4-inch hose, and it's nice because it's off the main trunk. So for the larger chips, I should have no problem with extraction of the chips. So it was actually a really good thing that I actually had moved the raised panel shaper over here versus on the other side. And then this is the original blast gate that was actually hooked up to the raised panel shaper at one time. But now that I got the coping and sticking shaper there, I was actually able to use this one as well. So this actually worked out really good, because if it wouldn't have been for the hydronic heat, I would have probably actually cut in another branch, another saddle possibly on this 6-inch main line to add this shaper, and not even thinking about removing the floor sweep because I've never used it, but it was actually prime time because I had to move it for the baseboard, so I just decided to actually use it for the blast gate for the raised panel shaper. So once again, I got lucky with the electrical. This one here is a 30 amp single phase that is good for the raised panel shaper. That does have a 5 horsepower 3-phase motor on it that runs off a variable frequency drive. So I need a 30 amp circuit to drive that, so that actually worked out really well. Now this one I always used for that shaper, it's just that it's over on that side now versus over here. but I also have a 20 amp plug here as well, which actually works really well for the coping and sticking shaper because that only has a 3-horse motor that's like 13 amps. So it actually worked out really well. For the simple reason that the reason I had 2 plugs here to begin with is this one was for the shaper and this one used to be used for the power feed on the shaper. But what I recently did was actually made a junction box on the back side of the raised panel shaper that connects the VFD and the input of the VFD and the power feed tied together to the line voltage. So this here plug actually plugs into the back of a junction box that ties the VFD and the power feed together. So that was actually a really good benefit as well, because I did do the same thing here for the coping and sticking shaper from the day that I had set this up, is that this power feed actually is tied into the line side of the magnetic starter. So the combined full load amps is less than 20, and the same thing for the input amps on the VFD and the power feed on the raised panel shaper is less than 30, so I'm still sitting good. So when I moved the coping and sticking shaper from this location to where it is now, I had this open space, which I knew that I didn't want to clutter up too much, but I knew that I could put something here that was very usable. And this is the old Craftsman 9-inch belt drive table saw. It actually has a dado head in it, or I actually put a magic molder in it as well for doing custom molding. This was kind of nice because I have a dust collection quick disconnect here, along with a 30 amp and 30 amp 230 and a 20 amp 115 volt drops there, so I can run the power feed and the table saw at this location. I was able to actually move this out of the corner where the loft area is and free up some space over there. Okay, so in this corner I used to have the old 9-inch belt drive benchtop Craftsman saw right there, as you saw just previously. That was in the corner here, along with the hinge boring machine, along with the Delta Rockwell heavy duty single speed wood shaper. And basically what I did is I moved the drill press, which used to stand where the shaper's standing right now, into the corner. For the simple reason I don't use the drill press on a regular basis. It gets used as needed, more so for drilling, for making jigs for the shop. Or miscellaneous drilling operation. It is on wheels, so I can pull it out when I need it, but other than that, it sits nicely in the corner here to just basically be used when it's needed. So once I moved the shaper back, or the drill press back there, I realized that I could move the Delta Rockwell heavy duty shaper out here, and it's actually usable where it's at. I could just pull it out, but I don't have a dust collection port for it, or a dedicated one, so it might still get wheeled out to the universal drop. But I do have plans to actually add a 4-inch branch off the 6-inch reduction line somewhere over here, so I can hook this shaper up as well, which actually work for the hinge boring machine as well. So both the hinge boring machine and the shaper can pretty much be used right where they're at, but I don't have electrical or dust collection for either one. So right now they would typically get used over by the universal drop. All right, so that kind of concludes the shop update here for the heating and organization. You know, it's one of those things that one project kind of forced me to do another, so it's actually a really good thing, because as you can see here is that actually everything worked out to the better. It was just kind of a pyramid effect where one benefit turned into another benefit, and it kept on going into better and better things. So I'm really looking forward to being up and running again here. I'll do another video once the heating system's actually up and running, but other than that, as far as moving equipment around, I think I'm pretty much done. So all right guys, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Questions and positive comments are welcome. Thanks for watching.